The Governance of China, Volume 2, Audiobook, Part 17. CPC Policies on Ethnic Affairs and Religion, September 28th, 2014, and April 22nd, 2016. Excerpts from two speeches made on September 28th, 2014, and April 22nd, 2016. Part 1. Multi-ethnicity is one of China's distinguishing features. It has played a key role in the country's development. Over China's 5,000-year history, many ethnic groups have come into being in the country. Through evolution, merging, and separation, 56 ethnic groups have emerged and now constitute the Chinese nation. They joined together in building our vast country, creating a long history and a brilliant culture. They created numerous prosperous eras in China's historical pantheon, such as the formidable Qin, 221 to 206 BC, and Han, 206 BC to AD 220 dynasties. The heyday of the Tang dynasty, 618 to 907, and the flourishing reigns, 1661 to 1796, of Kangxi, Yongjin, and Qianlong emperors of the Qing dynasty, 1616 to 1911. The unification of the 56 ethnic groups into one nation is an invaluable treasure bestowed by our ancestors and one of the country's great strengths. From the speech at the Central Conference on Ethnic Affairs, September 28th, 2014. Part 2. The correct and Chinese way to solve ethnic issues must follow these principles: upholding the leadership of the CPC, persevering in the socialist path with Chinese characteristics, safeguarding the unity of the country, adhering to the principle of equality among all ethnic groups, maintaining and improving the regional ethnic autonomy system, insisting that all ethnic groups work together and achieve common prosperity, consolidating the ideal that the Chinese nation is a community formed by all ethnic groups, practicing the rule of law, enhancing communication and exchanges, promoting harmonious and peaceful coexistence, consolidating and developing socialist ethnic relations featuring equality, unity, mutual assistance, and harmony, and achieving the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation together. From the speech at the Central Conference on Ethnic Affairs, September 28th, 2014. Part 3. In order to uphold and improve the system of regional ethnic autonomy, we need to focus our efforts on two combinations. The first is the combination of unification and autonomy. As the highest national interest and common interest of all ethnic groups, unification serves as the premise and foundation for regional ethnic autonomy. Without national unification, there is no way to practice regional ethnic autonomy. While making sure that state law and administrative regulations are effectively followed, we need to guarantee the right of autonomous regions to exercise autonomy, provide them with specific support, and help solve their individual problems. The second is the combination of ethnic factors and regional factors. Regional ethnic autonomy involves both ethnic factors and regional factors. We must make it clear that regional ethnic autonomy is not exclusive to one ethnic group, and that an ethnic autonomous area does not refer to an area that belongs to a single ethnic group. If we fail to understand this, we will take a wrong path. From the speech at the Central Conference on Ethnic Affairs, September 28th, 2014. Part 4. Religion is, as always, one of the priorities that our party must handle properly in governing the country. Our initiatives in regard to religion play a particularly important role in the overall work of the party and the country. They have an impact on the development of our cause, on the blood and flesh bond between the party and the people, on social harmony and ethnic solidarity, and on national security and unification. In this area, we are doing well on the whole. Our party's basic guidelines on religion have been carried out. The relations between the party and religious circles grow stronger. The rule of law has been improved in our work with religions, and religious activities are conducted in a smooth and orderly way. The facts prove that our party's theories, guidelines, and policies on religion are correct. To do our work well, we must follow the party's basic guidelines on religion, comprehensively implement the party's policies on freedom of religious belief, manage religious affairs by law, adhere to the principle of religious groups managing their own affairs, and encourage religions to adapt to socialist society. The party's basic guidelines on religion result from its adherence to Marxist views on religion, from a consideration of the prevailing conditions in China and the realities of religion in China, and from a reflection on successes and failures in how we have dealt with religion. The prime purpose and ultimate goal in implementing policies on freedom of religious belief is to unite believers and non-believers to the maximum extent. In order to encourage religions to adapt to our socialist society, we need to lead believers to love the country and the people, maintain the unification of the country and the solidarity of the Chinese nation, follow and serve the highest national interests and the common interests of the Chinese nation, embrace the leadership of the CPC and the socialist system, adhere to the Chinese socialist path, practice core socialist values, promote Chinese culture, and endeavor to integrate religious tenets with Chinese culture, abide by state laws and regulations, and voluntarily comply with the law-based management by the state, participate in reform and opening up and socialist modernization, and contribute to the realization of the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. To do our work well and better carry out the party's basic guidelines on religion, we need to provide good guidance. This is of crucial importance. To do so, we should think carefully and understand problems thoroughly and accurately. In other words, we should give sound, vigorous, and effective guidance so that we will maintain the initiative in our work with religions. From the speech at the National Conference on Religion, April 22nd, 2016. Improve the work of the United Front, May 18th, 2015. Part of the speech at the Central Conference on the United Front. In the new era, we must master the law of United Front work, adhere to the principles, adopt the appropriate methods, and uphold the leadership of the party, which is most fundamental. The United Front is under CPC leadership. in the United Front work, the policy and measures adopted should be conducive to upholding and consolidating CPC leadership and rule. At the same time, we must make it clear that CPC leadership over the United Front is primarily political, namely in terms of political principles, political direction, and major principles and policies. That this leadership is conducted mainly by party committees rather than any department, and by collective rather than individuals. We should resolutely adhere to the party's leadership, but in the process, we should respect, protect, and give consideration to the interests of our allies and help prominent non-CPC individuals to solve their problems. This is our party's responsibility and an important prerequisite for the party's leadership over the United Front. To improve the work of the United Front in the current era, we must correctly deal with the relationship between consistency and diversity. The United Front is the unity of consistency and diversity. It would not have been established or developed with only consistency or diversity alone. One cannot be taken as two, while only two can achieve unity. Footnote 1. Cai Shen, The Great Law, Hong Fan Huangji. Cai Shen, 1167 to 1230, was a scholar of the Southern Song dynasty. End of footnote 1. Consistency and diversity are not static but historical, concrete, and developing. Some officials pursue too much consistency, and others let diversity develop unchecked. The results will undermine the foundation of the United Front. The key to correctly handling the relationship between consistency and diversity is to seek common ground while shelving differences. On the one hand, we need to consolidate the common belief and political foundation, both consolidating existing consensus and promoting new consensus. This is the basis and prerequisite. On the other hand, we should fully promote democracy and respect inclusiveness and difference. We should take a clear-cut stand against any problem that is detrimental to CPC leadership, socialist political power, and national systems and the rule of law, and harmful to the fundamental interests of all the people, never letting it prevail in the name of diversity. This is our political red line, and it must not be crossed. On top of that, for all other issues of diversity, we should try to find the greatest common ground through patient and meticulous work. As long as we see to it that the political red line is not crossed, we will create a wider inclusive circle with a longer radius. To improve the work of the United Front in the current era, we must be good at befriending prominent non-CPC individuals. This is an important part of such work. Party and government leaders and officials of the United Front work should master this approach. We conduct the United Front work not for window dressing or good name, but for pragmatic reasons, because it plays a role, a big role, and an indispensable role. In the final analysis, the job of the United Front is to win over more people. We use the United Front to strengthen the forces for the common good. Including members of other political parties, prominent individuals without any party affiliation, people from ethnic minority groups and religious circles, people from new social groups. Footnote 2. This refers to people working in emerging industries, including management personnel and professionals in private and foreign-funded enterprises, employees of intermediate agencies, and the self-employed. End of footnote 2. And people from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and overseas. The United Front numbers hundreds of millions of people. As long as we unite all these people, we will have a stronger force to fight for the realization of the 2 centenary goals and the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. In a sense, to evaluate the performance of the United Front, we need to consider how many friends we have made, whether they are up to our expectation, and whether they are close to us. The first is about quantity, and the others are about quality. As the saying goes, even one enemy is too many, and 100 friends are too few. We should have a wider circle of friends. The more friends we have, the better it is. In particular, we need to make friends with those who speak their mind and offer forthright criticism. To make such friends, we should expend more time and make greater efforts. We should meet more often with prominent non-CPC individuals, talk heart-to-heart with them, and offer more help to them, and treat them with respect, equality, and sincerity. We must not patronize them or intimidate them. Of course, officials do have such personal friends, but this friendship is subordinate to the party's friendship with them. We should uphold principles, disciplines, and rules. We should never treat prominent non-CPC individuals as our personal resource. Instead, we should make a large number of sincere friends for the party. The party's work with social organizations. July 6th, 2015. Main points of the speech at the CPC Central Committee's Conference on the Party's Work with Social Organizations. Socialism with Chinese characteristics is a cause for all Chinese people, and the party's work with social groups undertakes a solemn mission in this regard. Organizations such as trade unions, the Communist Youth League, and women's federations must free their minds, be persistent in reform and innovation, forge ahead with determination and a down-to-earth approach, continue and enhance their work under the party's leadership, and remain progressive, pioneering, and people-oriented. They should also mobilize and organize the people to unite around the party more closely, turn public aspirations for a better life into a great motivating power, and open a new chapter in realizing the two centenary goals and the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. This is the first time that the CPC Central Committee has held such a conference, and the meeting's major tasks are to identify and analyze new issues concerning the party's work with social groups in the new era, to implement the opinions on strengthening and improving the party's work with social organizations, to summarize successful experience, to solve outstanding problems, and to promote reform and innovation. The work of social groups is an important part of the party's work. It is through social groups that the party mobilizes the people to achieve its central tasks. This is one of our party's great inventions, as well as a part of its major strengths. In each historical period of revolution, construction, and reform, organizations, including trade unions, the Communist Youth League, and women's federations under the leadership of the CPC, have played a positive role, mobilized the people to firmly follow the party's leadership, and made a great contribution to the cause of the party and the people. Prevailing conditions require that in the future, the party's work with social groups should be improved, not weakened or allowed to stagnate. We must strengthen and improve it according to changing circumstances and new missions, and give full play to the role of the working class as the main force, the role of young people as the vital force, the role of womenfolk as half the sky, and the role of talented individuals as the key human resource, thus fully arousing the enthusiasm of our 1.3 billion people. We must work better with social groups for the purpose of consolidating the class foundation and popular support for the party's governance, and make sure that the party always shares weal and woe with the people. We must give our help to social groups which will become more dynamic so that they can play an important role in the modernization of state governance and improvement of our capability. We must fully commend past achievements in the party's work with social groups, while at the same time be conscious of the need to address existing problems, especially the risk of becoming alienated from the people. Trade unions, the Communist Youth League, women's federations, and other social groups should be bold and innovative and consolidate and expand the achievements of the program of mass line education and the special education with the 3 guidelines for ethical behavior and 3 basic rules of conduct. They must focus on in-depth theoretical education, problem solving, and innovation of institutions, adjust their own thinking, enhance their public consciousness, and improve their working practices and performance. We must maintain and enhance the political nature of the party's work with social groups. The political role is the sole and primary feature of social groups. Social groups should always place themselves under the leadership of the party and be consistent with the CPC Central Committee in politics, thought, and action. They should safeguard the Central Committee's authority, implement the party's will and propositions, abide by political disciplines and rules, withstand all trials and tribulations, guide the people to implement the party's instructions and follow the party's leadership, and unite their own people around the party in the closest and most extensive way. The path Chinese social groups have traversed is a concrete demonstration of the party's work with social groups. It is a path formed and developed by the party over long years of experience in the development of trade unions, youth movements, and women's federations. This is commensurate with China's national conditions and historical development trend. We must maintain the party's leadership over social groups, ensure that social groups play a role of bridge and bond between the party and the people, accomplish the central task of economic development, and serve the overall interests of the country. Uphold the lifeline of serving the people, keep abreast with the times and persist in reform and innovation, and remain independent and self-reliant in their work according to law and their charters. Party organizations should encourage social groups to be fully effective, and social groups should be active and achieve good results in their work. We must maintain and enhance the advanced nature of social groups. Trade unions, the Communist Youth League, and women's federations are organizations under the party's direct leadership, shouldering the great responsibility of mobilizing the public to accomplish the party's central task. They must focus on maintaining and enhancing their advanced nature. Social groups should grasp the theme of our time, which is striving for the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation, serve the overall interests of the party and the country, mobilize the people to advance in the forefront of the time, and make accomplishments in the front line of reform, development, and stability. Social groups must let the more advanced lead the less advanced, replace ignorance and backwardness with cultural progress, and combat the false, the evil, and the ugly with the true, the good, and the beautiful. Social groups must educate and guide the people to improve their theoretical and moral awareness, stick to the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics, champion the core socialist values, and become the strong backer, powerful supporter, and profound social foundation for the party in its governance. Social groups in China should always share the same stance with the party and the people, take on the party's cares and concerns, and work for the well-being of the people. They should bear in mind theoretical and political awareness, organize, educate, and guide the people, carry out more publicity among the people, and strive to unite the people, build consensus, pull their strength together, resolve conflicts, improve relationships, and stimulate motivation. We must maintain and enhance the public nature of social groups, which is their defining uniqueness. In the work and activities of social groups, people should be leading actors rather than supporting casts or audience. Social groups should pay more attention to and care more for the people. Pay frequent visits to them, have face-to-face and heart-to-heart contacts with them, and develop sincere relationships with them. Social groups must improve organizational work, especially at the grassroots level, and speed up the work in emerging social sectors. Social groups and their staff, especially those at leading positions, should work at the grassroots to learn about the people's true living conditions, becoming practitioners of the party's principle of serving the people, executors of the party's mass line, and experts in the party's work for the people. Social groups must look downward towards the grassroots, reform and improve the institutional setup, their management and operations, and give more help to the grassroots in terms of service and resources. They must keep in touch with related social organizations and offer them their guidance. Attention must be paid to the scope of participation and representation of the people at the grassroots in public activities. They should recruit more outstanding people from the general public and place them mainly to the grassroots organizations. Social groups should serve the overall interests of the party and the country and think and act for these interests. At the same time, they should focus their work on the responsibilities and their contacts with the people and improve their work along with the changing of the times. They should strengthen their sense of service and their ability to render service, find more service resources, work to meet the needs of the people, pay more attention to people in strained circumstances, and resolve the people's difficulties and anxieties, becoming trustworthy, reliable, intimate, and inseparable friends of the people. Party committees at all levels should recruit for social groups competent people of integrity regardless of their social status. They should improve the training and management method, select and appoint qualified leadership, and improve the overall quality of the staff. People working in social groups should increase their theoretical and ethical level, have firm belief in their ideals and convictions, be strict with themselves, implement the 3 guidelines for ethical behavior and 3 basic rules of conduct, and resist the 4 malfeasances. Party committees at all levels should strengthen and improve the party's leadership over social groups so as to enable them to better serve the overall interests of the party and the country. They should maintain centralized leadership over social groups, joint management by party committees and governments, division of responsibilities among departments, and the exemplary role of party members, enabling social groups to fulfill their duties. Party committees and governments at all levels should create favorable conditions for the work of social groups. They should understand how social groups work, improve rules and regulations concerning party committees' leadership over social groups, and raise the level of the party's work with social groups. Cultural confidence. Transform and boost traditional culture in a creative way. September 24th, 2014. Part of the speech at the opening ceremony of the International Conference commemorating the 2565th anniversary of Confucius's birth and the 5th Congress of the International Confucian Association. We must never forget our history. Only then can we open up a new era. We should know how to inherit before we become good at innovation. Outstanding traditional culture is the root of the heritage and development of a country and a nation. Renouncing it is tantamount to severing our cultural lifeline. We should learn how to best carry forward our fine cultural traditions and at the same time promote contemporary culture. We should put emphasis on both inheriting and development. During its formation and progress, traditional culture is inevitably subjected to restraint and influence by the limitations in people's mindset, in conditions of the times, and in social systems. Consequently, it is natural that it contains things outdated or even dross. This requires us to adhere to the principle of making the past serve the present, weeding through the old to bring forth the new, when learning, studying, and applying traditional culture. We must make a judgment in accordance with today's reality and the requirements of our era, instead of putting it into practice mechanically without thinking. We should make the past serve the present, taking the past as a mirror for today, distinguishing what can be used and what cannot, and carrying forward while assimilating, instead of esteeming the past over the present and using the past to negate the present. We should learn to transform and boost traditional culture in a creative way, to integrate old and new, and let both of them serve our current mission of cultivating the people. The literature and art of the people. October 15th, 2014. Part of the speech at the Forum on Literature and Art. Socialist literature and art are, in essence, the literature and art of the people. In his speech at the 1942 Forum on Literature and Art in Yan'an, Mao Zedong stressed that this question of for whom is fundamental. It is a question of principle. Footnote 1. Mao Zedong talks at the Yan'an Forum on Literature and Art, Selected Works of Mao Zedong, Volume 3, English edition, Foreign Languages Press, Beijing, 1965, page 78. End of footnote 1. Deng Xiaoping made the remarks, "Our literature and art belong to the people, and it is the people who nurture our writers and artists." Footnote 2. Deng Xiaoping, speech greeting the 4th Congress of Chinese Writers and Artists. Selected Works of Deng Xiaoping, Volume 2, English edition, Foreign Languages Press, Beijing, 1995, pages 215 and 217. End of footnote 2. Jiang Zemin exhorted cultural workers to create art in the context of the history created by the people and create artistic achievements on the basis of the people's achievements. Footnote 3. Jiang Zemin promote socialist literature and art, selected key documents since the 14th CPC National Congress, Volume 3, Chinese edition, Central Party, Literature Publishing House, Beijing, 2011, page 224. End of footnote 3. Hu Jintao emphasized, "The tree of art thrives only when our writers and artists place the people above everything else in their minds, always stand by the people, and adhere to the principle of putting people first in their works." Footnote 4. Hu Jintao, speech at the 9th National Congress of China, Federation of Literary and Art Circles, and the 8th National Congress of China Writers Association, selected key documents since the 17th CPC National Congress, Volume 3, Chinese edition, Central Party Literature Publishing House, Beijing, 2013, page 618. End of footnote 4. The people are both the creators and observers of history, and both its protagonists and playwrights. To speak for the people, literature and art must follow the right path of serving the people and serving the socialist cause. This is a basic requirement of the party and decides the future of China's literature and art. Literature and art can exert their positive energy to the full only by firmly upholding the Marxist view on literature and art and truly putting the people first. To put the people first, writers and artists must take meeting the people's cultural needs as their aim and consummation of all work, and the people, the central subject of their creation. The people are the best connoisseurs and critics of literary and art works, and serving them is the duty of all writers and artists. Firstly, people need literature and art, and their needs are multifaceted. To satisfy people's growing material needs, we must increase the aggregate material wealth of society by building a stronger economy. To satisfy their growing cultural needs, we must increase the aggregate intellectual and cultural wealth of society by promoting cultural development. Material needs are primary needs, and the need for food precedes all others. That's why we say, food is the God for the people. Footnote 5. Banggu, Book of the Han Dynasty, Han Shu, Banggu, 32-92, was a historian and writer of the Eastern Han Dynasty. End of footnote 5. But this does not mean that cultural needs are insignificant. The biggest difference between humans and other animals lies in our cultural needs, which exist through the entire course of human life. As living standards rise, the requirements for cultural products, including literary and artworks, grow in terms of quality, taste, and style. All fields in the cultural sector, including literature, drama, film, TV, music, dancing, fine arts, photography, calligraphy, acrobatics, ballad singing, storytelling, and folk arts, should keep pace with the times and cater to the current needs of the people. Their practitioners should commit themselves to creating passionate, moving works with touching images and superb lyrics that the people love so that the public can enjoy a better cultural life. Today, the international community is paying increasing attention to China with the desire to learn more about us, our outlook, our lifestyle, our values, our views on nature, the universe, the past and future, our joys and sorrows, heritage, tradition, norms, and temperament. This broad range of knowledge cannot be garnered merely through press releases, official reports, or individual trips to China by foreign citizens. In this regard, literature and art have an irreplaceable role to play and can serve as the ideal channel for communication. Every novel, essay, poem, painting, photo, film, TV drama, or musical piece offers a unique perspective on China for people in other countries, inviting, enticing, and impressing them in its own way. Our cultural heritage, such as Peking opera, traditional music, calligraphy, and traditional Chinese painting, are all important avenues for the outside world to learn about China. Writers and artists should artfully tell Chinese stories, spread the Chinese voice, parse the Chinese spirit, and exhibit the Chinese image, giving foreign audiences a better understanding of China through their works. You are expected to promote splendid Chinese arts globally, introduce foreign audiences to the charm of Chinese culture, and in the course, help them develop a better understanding of it. Secondly, literature and art need the people who are the fountain of literary and artistic creations. Works that are divorced from the people are rootless, senseless, and soulless. Vladimir Lenin exhorted, "Art belongs to the people. It must have its deepest roots in the broad mass of workers. It must be understood and loved by them. It must be rooted in and grow with their feelings, thoughts, and desires. It must arouse and develop the artists in them." Footnote 6. Clara Zetkin, in commemoration of Lenin, Lenin on Literature and Art, Chinese edition, People's Literature Publishing House, Beijing, 1960, page 912. End of footnote 6. The people and their life are a bonanza for literary and artistic creations offering inexhaustible inspiration. The demands of the people are the reason for the very existence of literature and art. Whether an artist can produce excellent works depends on whether he or she can stand for and speak for the people. All literary and art works that caused a sensation in their times and have gone down in history reflect the call of their times and the aspirations of the people. For instance, All classics of Chinese literature are suffused with compassion and concern for ordinary people and ingeniously fuse artistic expression with humanistic vision. The Pellet Song, in Origin of Ancient Poetry, sketches prehistoric hunting scenes. Footnote 7. Shen De Qian, Origin of Ancient Poetry, Ge Shi Yuan. This is an anthology of ancient poems composed between the 21st century BC and AD 618. Shen De Qian, 1673 to 1769, was a poet of the Qing dynasty. End of footnote 7. The Book of Songs depicts the toil of farmers in the seventh month, the life of soldiers in gathering thorn ferns, and love between young people in crying ospreys. Footnote 8. Book of Songs, Shi Jing, was the earliest collection of poems in China. It contains 305 poems collected over some 500 years from the earliest Western Zhou dynasty, 1046 to 771 BC, to the middle of the spring and autumn period, 770 to 476 BC. End of footnote 8. Asking Heaven explores the mysteries of the universe. Footnote 9. Chu Yuan, Asking Heaven, Tian Wen, Songs of Chu, Chu Tzu. Chu Yuan, circa 339 to 278 BC, was a poet and statesman of the Warring States period. End of footnote 9. The Song of the Chile is about the life of nomads. Footnote 10. Song of the Chile. Chile Ge is a folk song of the northern dynasties, 386 to 581. End of footnote 10. The Ballad of Mulan lauds the wit and grit of women. Footnote 11. The Ballad of Mulan, Mulan Shi, is a long narrative folk song of the northern dynasties. End of footnote 11. They are all based on real life. The best remembered lines of China's best-known writers invariably reflect people's heartfelt wishes in their times. Examples are, I sigh and cry, how hard life is for my countrymen. Footnote 12. Chu Yuan, The Lament, Le Sao, Songs of Chu, Chu Tzu. End of footnote 12. By Chu Yuan. Where to find decent homes, to shelter all poor scholars on earth and bring a smile to their face. Footnote 13. Du Fu, Song of the Thatched Cottage Broken by the Autumn Wind. Mao Wu Wei, Jiu Feng, So Po Ge. Du Fu, 712 to 770, was a poet of the Tang Dynasty. End of footnote 13. And the rich wine and dine, the poor starve and die. Footnote 14. Du Fu expressed feelings in 500 words on the way to Fengxian County from the capital. Zi Jing Fu Feng, Xiang Xiang, Yang Hui, Wu Bai Zi. End of footnote 14. By Du Fu. Every grain on the plate comes from hard labor. By Li Shun. Footnote 15. Li Shun, Sympathy for the Peasants. Min Nong Shou. Li Shun, 772 to 846, was a poet of the Tang Dynasty. End of footnote 15. And, for petty county officials like us, every concern of the people weighs in our heart. By Zheng Ban Jiao. Footnote 16. See Note 2, page 163. End of footnote 16. It is the same with other cultures. Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest literary work in the world, records the quest for the law of nature and mystery of life by residents in the Tigris-Euphrates area. The epics of Homer sing praise of such virtues as bravery, justice, unselfishness, and diligence. Footnote 17. the Iliad and the Odyssey. End of footnote 17. The Divine Comedy, footnote 18, written by Dante Alighieri, circa 1265 to 1321, end of footnote 18. Decameron, footnote 19, written by Giovanni Boccaccio, 1313 to 1375, end of footnote 19. And The Life of Gargantua and Pantagruel, footnote 20, written by Francois Rabelais, circa 1483 to 1553, end of footnote 20. Protest against medieval asceticism and obscurantism, and voice a yearning for the emancipation of the mind. These all point to the fact literature and art thrive only when they are firmly grounded in reality and closely keep pace with the times. Their vitality lies in their conformity with the people's will and reflection of the people's concerns. The people are not an abstract symbol, but individuals of flesh and blood who have emotions, dreams, and inner struggles. How one person feels and thinks does not necessarily represent how the majority of people feel and think. Writers and artists, therefore, must humbly learn from the people and their life, their great endeavors, and the colorful world they create, all of which provide nourishment for the artist's life and career, enabling them to constantly discover and create beauty. Writers and artists must keep the people's well-being in their minds, convey the people's joys and sorrows in their works, extol the people's endeavors, and cover the most beautiful souls among them, so as to strengthen their audience's expectations of and confidence in a better future. Here I would like to share with you a story of mine. Before I headed for Zhengding County of Hebei Province in 1982 for a new appointment, many friends came to bid farewell. One of them was the writer and playwright of August 1st Film Studio, Wang Yuanjian. He urged me to follow the example of Liu Qing of being close to local farmers and becoming one of them. In order to immerse himself in rural life, Liu Qing resigned from his position of deputy party secretary of Chang'an County, Shaanxi Province, while remaining a member of the standing committee of the county party committee, and moved to Wangfu village. There he lived for 14 years and wrote his novel, The Builder of New Life. His immersion in rural life in Guangzhou area of Shaanxi explains the lifelike characters in his books. Being so well acquainted with farmers, he immediately knew whether they would approve of any new policy concerning agriculture or rural residents. Thirdly, writers and artists must have genuine love for their people. The results of their creation are decided by their attitude and stance. Those who feel no affection for the people will not work for them. Lu Xun was devoted to his people. Footnote 21. Lu Xun, 1881 to 1936, was a literature, thinker, and revolutionary, as well as one of the founders of modern Chinese literature. End of footnote 21. As is testified by his famous lines, holding my head high in defiance of the enemy's attacks, bowing my head low in obedience to the people. Footnote 22. Lu Xun, Self-Mockery, Complete Works of Lu Xun, Volume 7, Chinese edition, People's Literature Publishing House, Beijing, 2005, page 151. End of footnote 22. Jia Dashan, a writer I got to know when working in Zhengding of Hebei Province, is another writer who loves the people. After his death, I wrote a commemorative article. What impressed me most was his concern for the country and his countrymen, wherever and whatever he was. Though living at the grassroots level, one is concerned for his state. Footnote 23. Fan Zhongyan. The Yueyang Tower, Yueyang Lo Ji. Fan Zhongyan, 989 to 1052, was a statesman and literary scholar of the Northern Song dynasty. End of footnote 23. Writers and artists should be aware that they will achieve nothing unless they are of the same mind with the people, share their fate, joys, and sorrows, and willingly serve their interests. This is the sole path that writers and artists should follow, and it should also be their greatest joy. Love for the people should not be lip service. It demands deep, rational convictions and concrete actions. Absolute, genuine, lasting love for the people is based on an acknowledgement that it is the people who create history and on a willingness to dive deep into their lives and humbly learn from them. I stress deep here because certain people only do it in a cursory manner without putting their hearts into it. Our writers and artists must answer these questions. Who do we serve? Who do we rely on? Who am I? To bring down any invisible wall between you and the people, you should not only approach them physically, but also empathize with them emotionally. The people are the source of all innovations in literature and art, directly or indirectly. A grasp of mundane affairs is genuine knowledge. Understanding of worldly wisdom is true learning. Footnote 24. Qiao Shui Qin. A Dream of Red Mansions. Hong Lo Meng. Qiao Shui Qin, 1715 to 1763, was a novelist of the Qing dynasty. End of footnote 24. Arts can fly on the wings of imagination high in the sky, but artists must keep their feet firmly on the ground. There are hundreds or thousands of ways of creating art, but the most important and reliable is the one that is people-centered and reality-based. Without his panoramic and microscopic observation of the society of his time, Qiao Shui Qin could not have produced the encyclopedic classic A Dream of Red Mansions. Similarly, without his intimacy with and empathy for the underclass immediately before and after the 1911 revolution, Lu Xun could not have created such memorable characters as Sister Xianglin, Run Tu, Ah Qiu, and Kong Yi Zhi. There is no sustained inspiration or passion for art to be found in an ivory tower. As a Soviet poet put it, homebound writers vainly rack their brains to the point of wringing water out of nails. We must dive deep into life and discover the essence of it amid the people. Only after fully and thoroughly ruminating on and digesting life can we reconstruct it in fascinating works with thoughtful plots and compelling characters. Meditating behind closed doors is a no good approach to writing. Going out and traveling spontaneously leads to good poems. Footnote 25. Yang Wan Li, descending Hengshan Mountain and looking up at Jinhua Mountain. Xia Hengshan Tan To Wang Jin Hua Shan. Yang Wan Li, 1127 to 1206, was a writer and poet of the Southern Song dynasty. End of footnote 25. All techniques and means of artistic creation must serve the content and the purpose of providing ingenious, incisive, and engaging coverage of certain persons and events, or making strong arguments. Otherwise, the techniques and means are worthless and can even have an adverse impact on the results desired. Life, of course, does not always run smoothly. It does not always meet our expectations, and evil phenomena exist. We should not shun these problems, but instead find the right approach to addressing them. Our ancestors warned that neither grief nor joy must go to excess. Footnote 26. The Analects of Confucius, Lun Yu. End of footnote 26. And that all human feelings are subject to the constraints of propriety and morality. Footnote 27. Preface to Mao's version of the Book of Songs, Mao Shi Shu. End of footnote 27. Literature and art will not hearten people to press on if they simply expose the darkness and account for the status quo without extolling brightness and ideals and offering moral guidance. They should observe life from the perspectives of both realism and romanticism, dissipating darkness with light and defeating evil with goodness and justice, so that the people can see the better side of life, hopes, and dreams ahead of them. A good work of literature and art can stand the test of the audiences, critics, and market as well. It puts social benefits before everything else, but also yields decent economic returns. Under the socialist market economy, many cultural products have to realize their values on the market. Economic result is therefore a factor that cannot be overlooked. It nevertheless comes second to social benefits. When the two collide, economic results must submit to social benefits, and market values must give way to social values. Literature and art should not be slaves of the market or bear the stench of money. A good work is ideologically and artistically successful and well received by the market as well. To defend the aesthetic ideals and independent values of literature and art, we must set quantitative indexes at reasonable levels, including circulation, audience figures, click rate, and box office revenue. We should not overlook or negate these indices, but neither can we be obsessed with them to the extent of blindly following the market trend wherever it takes us. As some people put it, we should keep our eyes on the horizon of the wider world while keeping our feet on the ground of China, following the most advanced globally and meanwhile facing the reality domestically. Only through this approach can we share the Chinese experience with all humankind and make our unique contribution to world literature and art. These people are right. The Chinese people have built a civilization of more than 5,000 years, have pulled through wars to win independence and liberation, and under the leadership of the CPC have achieved notable successes in the course of revolution, nation building, and reform. The profound changes in this ancient country and the rich work and life experiences of its 1.3 billion people offer fertile soil for literary and artistic creation. There is so much to be written about them. We can find infinite strength from the motherland and the people as long as we firmly stay with them.